I'm Thomas Jackson, and I'm a filmmaker, a animal rights activist, and a vegangelist. But I haven't always been a vegangelist. As a matter of fact, I grew up in South Georgia, and I ate the standard American diet just like everybody else, just the Southern version. And I got sick like everybody. We just thought it was normal. But it was when I moved to New York City in 2005, I was attending a Unity church, and I started meditating every day. That's when I became vegan, and it was because I grew up in South Georgia and I saw animals killed for food. I saw my grandmother wring the necks of chickens. I saw my dad cleaning and scaling fish, gutting them, and I remember looking at him and going, oh my God, one day I'm going to have to do this in order to be a grown-up. I buried all of that. Like I buried it because we all are being indoctrinated into that it's normal. So I buried that. And when I started meditating every day, what happened was that I become present with what was on my plate. I started to like look down and see and realize that's a dead animal that wouldn't be dead if I wasn't choosing to eat it. And trying to become a more spiritual and peaceful person, I thought that's not in alignment with who I was trying to be and become. So I didn't know what vegan was at that moment. I knew what vegetarian was. So I said, I'm going to be a vegetarian. I was probably vegetarian a couple weeks, and I went into this deli and I ordered some food, and I very proudly said, make sure it's vegetarian. And the guy behind the counter was like, vegetarian or vegan? And I was, vegan? What the heck is vegan, man? It sounded like something from Star Trek, you know? I don't think this guy was vegetarian or vegan, you know, but I was like, what's vegan? And he's like, that means no animal products. And to this day, I remember a little voice in the back of my head going, I don't know why people do that, but there's probably a good reason for it. And I said, make it vegan. And I've been vegan ever since. This was 2005, before YouTube, so I'd never heard the word vegan.
Define veganism.
My favorite definition of veganism comes from Dr. Silas Rao. He may have got it from somewhere else, but in 2016, when I interviewed him at the Animal Rights Conference in California, he told me that when he talks to a group of people, he always asks them this question. I've taken to asking this question too, and I've seen him do it hundreds of times now. The question is, would you ever unnecessarily hurt an innocent animal? And honestly, I've never seen anybody raise their hands. He said nobody's ever raised their hands. You know, I'm sure there may be somebody on this planet that would do that. But when they don't raise their hands, he says, congratulations, you're all vegan. A vegan is someone who doesn't want to unnecessarily hurt an innocent animal or innocent being. You know, I take it to being all beings. So to me, veganism is about ahimsa. It's about nonviolence. It's about making choices and actions that cause the least harm possible.
What are common questions you get when someone finds out you're vegan?
I feel the person, when they find out I'm vegan, they know what a vegan is and they have a little guilt behind not being vegan. So they don't ask me too much a lot of times. It's almost like they want to change the subject. Yeah, in the past, people would ask me about, you know, where do you get your protein and your calcium. Honestly, when I went vegan, this was in 2005 before YouTube, and I had no idea about the nutrition part of veganism, and I thought I might like shrivel up, get weak, and fade away. They'd always say, "Oh, you got, you know, I have to have meat." Yeah, I guess they're trying to defend their position, but these days I think people are they know better. They know that there's really no argument against it. So most people don't ask me many questions. They actually try to make steer around the subject so we don't, you know. So I'm always looking for the end about the environment or health, while they're trying to avoid learning anything, especially about animal cruelty. I think that's the part they don't want to hear about.
What have you noticed different since becoming vegan? Whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally?
You know, when I first went vegan almost 17 years ago, I used to get like allergies really bad. Like twice a year for weeks, I would get awful allergies. I noticed that really cleared up. You know, I might get a few days of like congestion or something. Really, the runny eyes and the like just misery went away. And I noticed that, you know, I thought I was going to get weak and shrivel up, but I was already at going to a gym. I noticed that, oh, I could still do what I was doing. I actually felt better, you know, and you know, at the time there was no game changer, so I didn't know why or anything, but I did feel like I was getting stronger when I thought I was going to get weaker. So that was a nice surprise. And then later, as a being vegan for many years and then starting to like study compassion and trying to take veganism beyond food into everyday life, really trying to do no harm, trying to minimize the harm I do, I noticed karmic effects. I noticed good things coming my way. And I noticed that when I offered to be of service to try to spread this message, that somehow all the doors open. I was able to make this film that took me around the world and still live in this RV and be a single dad in the woods, you know? Like, it felt magical to me, and I feel like it's a lot of it is a result of trying to step up my game and offering to be of service.
When you said this film, you're talking about A Prayer for Compassion, right?
Yes.
What are the most important reasons for you to be vegan now, as opposed to maybe when you first went vegan, if that's changed at all?
Well, on a personal level, the reason I went vegan will be the reason I'll always be vegan, is that I believe we're all connected. I believe in not harming another sentient being if you can help it. Because I believe in karma and the golden rule and all these things. What you put out comes back to you. I've seen it in my own life. So that still is going to always be my core. Yet what motivates me to be an activist, because when I first went vegan, I was going to live and let live, be a good example. Everybody's got their own karma. But after I saw Cowspiracy, like in 2013 or so, 2014, when I saw Cowspiracy and discovered that the planet was dying because of animal agriculture. I mean, I'd been vegan almost a decade and had no idea that the planet was being destroyed by animal agriculture, or just how devastating it was. And having a 2-year-old baby and seeing that film, my motivation to become an activist was the environment. And after I made the film, The Prayer for Compassion, and I went around and interviewed people and saw how healthy people were that had made the switch to a nonviolent lifestyle and taken the animals off of their plate, I really became motivated to help people, like family members and other people I know, who are suffering from what they're eating, because I've witnessed both sides and I'm now aware. The health, environment, my spiritual, all of those motivate me. And I'm motivated by the idea that there are hungry people out there when we feed animals 5 times the food we eat, and there's people starving. If we weren't eating animals, there'd be way more food for everybody. We'd be able to reforest a lot of land, we'd sequester the carbon, you know. It's like an answer to all of these problems. You know, and then after the pandemic, and you learn that, you know, there are swine flus and avian flus being bred now that'll be more deadly. And if we weren't confining these animals and torturing these animals and giving them antibiotics and all of these, so just global health. You know, there are so many reasons, but the top 5 are those reasons. That's why I am activated as a vegan. But the primary reason I'm vegan is for a spiritual, trying to do no harm, ahimsa lifestyle.
Why is it important for others to be vegan? You know, a lot of times people say, what I do is my own business.
Yeah, you know, I hear people say something like, you know, it's good for you to be vegan, but we make our own choices and it's my own business. We all share this planet. I like what Dr. Silas Rao says about we're in a house that's on fire. And what's the first thing you do when you're in a house that's on fire? You stop throwing fuel on the fire. And by eating animals, you're throwing fuel on the fire. And we all share this house. This planet is our only planet. We all share it. So when you're eating animals, you're throwing fuel on the fire, and you're affecting my daughter's future and your children's future. And because of that, I think we should all be motivated for the children. I think the biggest motivation for me is not just my daughter, but looking at all the children that are coming up and realizing how many of them will not experience the wildlife we have now. We're losing wildlife at a scary rate, you know. At the rate we're going, there should be no wild vertebrates in the wild. The planet is a big motivator why people should go vegan. And also, at least the people I know who are suffering, their health. I mean, just unnecessary suffering is unnecessary. So yeah, I mean, I think people should go vegan for the planet and their health, and even if they don't want to do it for the animals. But what I will tell you is that all the people I've interviewed and talked to that went vegan for the environment or for their health after they were no longer complicit in the killing of the animals, their hearts softened in some way and they were able to understand and really become motivated by the plight of the animals. So whether people are motivated by the animals or not, once they're no longer complicit in the violence, the heart softens and they start getting, I've seen it over and over and over and over.
How do you encourage others to be vegan and maybe even share what you found to be most effective?
One of the ways I've been trying to encourage people to go vegan is I made a film called A Prayer for Compassion, and I took it around and I do a lot of Q&As, and I go to Veg Fest and I go to churches and different community centers, and I speak to people about the connection between spirituality and veganism. And I inform them about animal agriculture, which a lot of us doesn't know because it's so hidden. One of the most effective ways is to ask people, did you know that in order for there to be milk, that a cow is artificially inseminated or made pregnant against her will, and that the day her baby's born, usually they take that baby away from her, and if it's a boy baby, it's a byproduct of the dairy industry, so it's usually disposed of pretty quickly, or turned into veal, another product. And most people don't know that. I'm shocked at people who grew up in the South their whole life. They know dairy farmers, but they had no idea. And I have so many people say, I need to ask somebody about that. They don't want to believe it's true because honestly, there's nothing more worse than taking babies away from their mothers. I mean, other than raping the mothers to start with. I gently ask them that, usually if I'm coming from an animal rights standpoint. But if I'm talking to the person and they say anything about suffering, or they talk about the environment, or they give me clues, I tune into what's important to them. Some people, animals are important, and their health they could care less about. Some people could care less about animals and they really want to be healthy all the time, or they're suffering because of a lifestyle disease. I notice when people are suffering, they're a lot more open to hearing the message. You really just have to be present with the person and tune into what's important to them. And then the other thing I would say is I really try hard not to come across with judgment or anger. I mean, I think it's so easy to see the person as part of the problem, being complicit in it. They're wrong for doing it. But I wasn't always vegan, and most people, unless you're lucky to be born vegan, like my daughter and some other people, you were indoctrinated into the same system of normalized violence as everybody else. So I come at that point, and I usually try to have compassion for the person instead of judgment. Although, if I'm with a group of activists and we're doing a demonstration or we're doing a protest or we're doing a march, we'll raise our voices in. That's the time to let people hear it loudly. But I think on a one-on-one basis, you really just have to tune into the person. I think this is, for me, meditation is so important. I think meditation for activists is critical because you're going to come across people that don't want to hear this information. They're going to be resistant to hearing what you have to say. And if you're present with them and you're able to, by training yourself through meditation, you'll be able to not be triggered whenever they may get upset, and you'll be able to stay calm. I mean, Earthling Ed to me is a great example of being able to talk to people and be loving with them and still let them know just what's going on. So I recommend watching his videos if you want to learn how to speak to people and stay peaceful and help them see the world a little differently without judgment.
So what challenges have you had since you went vegan?
When I first went vegan in 2005, I guess it was a little harder to get comfort food. There was a little bit of a challenge there, but honestly, I just couldn't keep participating in that industry, so I pushed through it. I think for me now, the biggest challenge is watching people suffer and knowing that they don't have to suffer, and knowing that no matter how hard I try, it's really hard to get through to some people. So I think, to me, that's the hardest part about being vegan, is having this truth that in your bones, because you've experienced it, and seeing somebody suffer that could really use this, but not knowing how to communicate it in a way that they can hear you. That's pretty tough.
How has being vegan affected your relationships? More specifically, like your intimate relationships or your closest friends?
Early on, it wasn't it didn't really affect much. I mean, most of my friends at Unity, even though they weren't vegan, if we were hanging out together, a lot of times they would go to a vegetarian or vegan restaurant with me. They were open and going to places they knew had options. So people have always been allies to me. I really haven't had many people be anything other than an ally.
How do you deal with other family members who aren't vegan, like during the holidays, especially?
I guess for me, it's brings a little bit of sadness to the holidays because having a young daughter, I want to bring her to the family gatherings and keep her connected to the family, so we're always connected. And so we do go to the holidays, and we are honored in the sense that there are vegan dishes. When I first went vegan, my mom used to put like ham and stuff in all the vegetables, and now she doesn't do that. The vegetables we're able to eat, and if there's something that has butter in it, she'll make something with us with vegan butter. So that made it easier, but it's hard to watch the family, eating animals and knowing that I've met animals like that and they're sweet and innocent. That's hard. Then it makes you feel bad. I mean, it's a whole kind of interesting feeling, I think. But for the last few years, more than anything, I don't even think about the animals as much as I think about what it's doing to my family's health. I keep seeing family members who are having heart attacks and on medications, and I lost my dad 2 years ago to a stroke. So, and I feel like a lot of this is related to the food they're eating. I mean, we have the same blood, and we're doing the same thing. So I think holidays are hard for me because I'm watching family members create more unnecessary suffering in their life. And I've seen it affect. My mom uses vegan butter and everything now. Like when we're there, she's making the vegan stuff, and she's eating that with us a lot of times, like the vegan pancakes and all. Like, she's veganizing stuff without saying things about it. I mean, I see the effects. And more than anything, they see year after year me coming back to that table healthy, no medicines, in good shape, with lots of energy, going around the world doing stuff. Like, I continue to show them that you can thrive as a vegan and be happy as a vegan. I think we have to love people in our lives, because if I cut people off, I want to say the ahimsa thing and what Jesus talking about not judging. Those spiritual aspects and forgiveness and all these things have to be applied. And I do try to do activism with people I love like that. But I say the most effective activism that a person can do is with people who are on the fence. Like, if once people are shutting their ears, if you push too hard, you might close the door super hard. You just have to leave the door open enough, plant the seeds to where you see the opportunities and come in. But those are kind of, I guess, the strategies for.
How might life be different if you were raised vegan?
Yeah, I think it would be wonderful to have been raised vegan. Watching my daughter be raised vegan and meeting so many kids being raised vegan, it just feels like they're more present with all of life. You're not. And personally, not being raised vegan, I know that I had to shut down parts of myself, parts of my compassion. I had to compartmentalize my love and care and compassion per species. It's okay to love the dogs, and it's okay to love the squirrels and things in your yard, and your cats or whatever it may be, but don't get too attached to a pig, because they're here to be eaten. You know what I mean? Don't get too attached to a goat or a cow. So I think I would have had a much more peaceful, tender childhood. I think there's a lot of anxieties and depressions that I experienced before I went vegan that was a result of the food I was eating. So I think I would have had more peace and been probably my spiritual path might have kicked off a little sooner. Yeah, I wish I had been raised vegan, for sure.
Do you have any regrets?
Like I think like all vegans, like I regretted that I didn't go vegan sooner. That's a common regret. But I think my biggest regret, about a year and a half ago, I lost my dad to a stroke. I had had a heart-to-heart with him like a couple years before he passed, and really just pitched him as hard as I could. I did the health angle, I did the religious angle, I did everything I could. One of those conversations where you're like, I'm going to let it all out and I'm not going to bother you again if you'll listen to me. And he sat down and I just really let it out. Him and his wife said, this is how we live and this is how it's going to be. And so I had to accept that. But the night he had his stroke, you know, I discovered like he had this hamburger steak like an hour before he had his stroke, an hour and a half or so. And since then, I've seen a couple doctors and asked them about the fact, could the blood clot in his brain be related to the animal fat that he had eaten an hour and a half before? And they both said yes. It's very common for people to have heart attacks and strokes after a meat-intensive meal. Yeah, my biggest regret is that I couldn't have somehow convinced my dad to change his diet and then get off his statins and to still be here today.
Why didn't you go vegan sooner?
I didn't go vegan sooner. I didn't even know what vegan was. You know what I mean? That was some of it. I did try vegetarianism in film school for a little bit. Was a production assistant. I was doing something on one of the student films and they needed a pig for a shot, you know, and so I went to one of the farmers, well, I don't know what they're called, stockyards, somewhere with the auctions where they auction off the animals, but it was not when they were doing it. But the guy met me there and he gave us a pig, a baby pig. He stayed outside. I stayed out with him the night before we took him to Tallahassee, and I really connected with him. And I said, you know, this was probably in 1998 or 1999, and so I went vegetarian. But back in 1999 in South Georgia, like I was just eating like cheese pizzas, and you know, I wasn't eating a very healthy diet. And then I got in a relationship with someone, and next thing I know, I'm back to eating normal, and I kind of buried all of those. I kind of buried it all down again until I started meditating every day and it came back. So that's the main reason I wasn't vegan, is that I wasn't exposed to the ideas of it. And I think for most people, if they knew cows were being separated from their moms and all this stuff, I'd like to think that if I knew that, I would have went vegan. Can't say for sure.
Prior to going vegan, did you ever think, there's no way I could go vegan?
No, because I didn't know what vegan was. So yeah, no, I never thought that because I never heard the word.
Do you ever worry about any specific nutrients?
I don't worry about nutrients, especially now that I have done a little research. I just make sure that I get certain nutrients. Like I make sure I get my omegas. I have my flax seeds and chia seeds and walnuts and things like that. I make sure I supplement D, because everybody should supplement D. And B12, I take B12, but I also get my blood work done every year at the VA, and every year I'm getting an A+.
How do you suggest others get started?
I think now where we're at, it's a lot easier to become vegan and to know that you're not going to get sick and to know what you need. I think there's so many. You can go to YouTube and say how to become vegan. You can go to, you can get mentors by taking the Challenge 22. The easiest thing to do, or the first thing to do, is just do a little research. Actually, you can go to our website, aprayerforcompassion.com, and go to links for the challenge, and there's a whole page that says how to go vegan, why to go vegan. It's links to all these different websites that already exist that give information on how to go vegan, why to go vegan, how to meditate, how to, different things for self-care and self-compassion. It's a great resource. But yeah, feel free to check that out, or just Google how to go vegan.
Why do you think some people quit veganism?
I think there's probably lots of reasons, but I think one of the primary reasons is the same reason that a lot of people have trouble going vegan. Myself and a lot of people I met, like when we have a conviction in our heart, we can't not do what we are convicted to do. But it seems so many people have a fear of being different than the ones around them. I think I like to think of it like this. It goes back to when we lived in tribes and lived in caves, and that if for some reason you got ostracized from your community, you were going to starve to death or get eaten by a lion or a dinosaur or whatever. But you were, for security, you needed to stay connected to your community. So I think so many people, there's this primal fear of being different and being outside of the community. So I think some people, after they become vegan and they get ridiculed enough, or they may go back for that reason. I think some people, like, they might become a vegan that just eats potato chips and sodas and Oreos and all the candies and stuff that are vegan, and just aren't getting the nutrients and feel bad. That could be part of it. I also think there's some people that had such a bad diet at the very beginning when they're detoxing, their body's just clearing out the old stuff and they just don't give it enough time to get all the way through. But I think if you prepare right, you watch the videos, make sure you're getting your nutrients, you're going to feel nothing but better.
Do you have any success stories you want to share? And I think last night when we were hanging out, you mentioned some things that happen when you do your screenings.
Yeah, there's been several cool moments, with the screenings with like instant conversions, especially in India. I noticed there's more like openness to new ideas. Like there's no threatening feeling when they watch the film. They're not feeling like they're threatened in any way. And when they see what's happening to the environment, to the animals and stuff, I've seen people like immediately in the Q&A say, "I'm going vegan." That's it for me. A lot of vegetarians went vegan because they didn't know what's happening to the cows and the chicks. But I'd say one of my favorite moments is we were at a screening in Goa in India. Halfway through the screening, this young man was with his mom. He's probably 13 or 14. She told me after the screening that she got a text from him, even though he's sitting right next to her, and it said, "I want to go vegan." And so afterwards, I was talking to her, and she was so happy because she said he was a diet-hard meat eater, and that she thought their health would improve. And so I think that was one of my favorite success stories.
Do you have a favorite quote you want to share?
When I'm talking to activists and all, I like to quote Maya Angelou a lot, where she said, "People will forget what you say and do, but they'll remember how you made them feel." And I always try to tell vegans, and I try to remember that whenever I'm talking to somebody, I might be the only vegan they know, and I want to leave them feeling, I want some of that, and remembering that they felt good when they were around me, a vegan, so I think that's one of my favorite quotes. One of the quotes that really changed the way I do activism and made me look at things differently is, again, from Dr. Sailesh Rao, who said, when I interviewed him in 2016 at the Animal Rights Conference in Los Angeles, he said, "When what we say and what we do are out of alignment, we suffer." And I remember going, man, that sounds profound, But I don't get it. It was going over my head. I just couldn't get my mind around what that meant. But I knew it was an important thought, and I stuck with it, and I kept it in all the cuts. And by the time I'd taken the whole journey of making the film, I knew it in my bones what he was talking about. And because as I was going around and I was interviewing people who at one time were sick from lifestyle diseases but had changed their diet, taken the violence out, and added good nutritious food, and they got off their medications. They're 30 years later, they're still doing great, and they're off medications, and I met doctors who had helped people, hundreds of people, or thousands or whatever. I mean, I just witnessed, and witnessed, and in my own life. Being a veteran, I get my blood work done every year, and every year my doctor comes and gives me an A+, and she says, "I wish more of my patients would choose plants over pills." So, I know that my health has changed, and at the same time I'm witnessing all of this, I'm watching people I love, family members and other people I love who are suffering from lifestyle diseases, having heart attacks and heart stents and gallbladders and cancers and, all of these different things on medications. So many people I know are on medications my age and some younger, I think if you're getting your nutrients and you're taking out the stuff that's harming the body, there's no need for these medications. And I've witnessed that, So now when I meet people, he said that we're all vegan at heart if we don't want to hurt animals unnecessarily. And then the other quote about when what we do and what we say are out of alignment, we suffer. I meet people, I know they're already vegan at heart, and if for some reason they're out of alignment with it, then they're suffering. So it gives me this compassion for the person I'm talking to instead of the judgment or anger at them. So that quote helped change the way I interact with people as an activist and just as a human being.
Is there anything about vegans you'd like to see change?
There's vegans and there's animal rights activists. One thing, I love animal rights activists so much, and the only thing, I would like to see them love themselves more and take better care of themselves. I know so many of them that will work themselves to the bone for the animals and for other people and won't take the time to meet their needs. I really want to see animal activists and vegans and everybody loving themselves more and taking care of themselves more. And of course, in any group of people, there's always kind of factions that, You know, there's the vegans who are no oil and oil, and there's the fast food vegans and the health food vegans. You know, there's all these things, and sometimes I see people like wasting a lot of energy kind of fighting with each other. So I kind of like to see people trying to be more accepting, because I think we each have our own role and place to play and people to affect. If I start trying to do my filmmaking like Jeff Adams, I'm going to be reaching his people when I really need to be reaching my people. Or not, you know, not that they're my people, but the people I'm here, that I came here for. Like, I feel like we all came here to do a purpose. So I feel the more you can stay true to yourself and follow that purpose, and not try to criticize other people and their approaches, I think the more we can have a more whole or vegan front that is compassionate to each other and to everybody else, and that's more united in our the face we're putting out.
Do you think we'll ever see a vegan world? And how might we get there?
Well, you know, in 2018, I went to the first Vegan World 2026 conference. I went in thinking there's no way, because I know people who will never ever go vegan. In my heart, I feel like they are never going vegan. But I came out. I came out of that conference feeling a lot of hope, and also a different understanding what a vegan world is. I think we're going to go through a transition. I think the first transition is going to be where veganism, and it's already happening, where veganism is becoming the norm. Like, over time, it's going to be like cigarettes. There's still people smoking cigarettes, but they're not allowed to smoke here. You know, they're ostracized in some way. It's not the common anymore. It's getting less and less. And I think that's what's going to happen to animal agriculture. I think mainly because of the environment. I think the environment's going to be the tipping point in some ways over time. Vegan World 2026 is just trying to get it normalized by then. You know, having that being the standard choice, and having stuff like universal meals, where anytime there's a public gathering or at a church or in the community or any kind of public gathering, it's a universal meal that is not only vegan, but, you know, gluten-free and different, respectful. I mean, there's actually a menu, I think, that they've created that is universal meals. I think for gatherings, we're going to have that more. I do have to believe that over time, as more vegan children are living and more people are being born vegan, that in a few generations, we might see a vegan world where nobody's eating animals at all. You know, I really think we'll evolve to that, and we'll have to, man. We cannot sustain this. You cannot live on a planet and take so many resources of that planet and feed it to these animals and get so many little resources back and call that sustainable. So I think, yeah, we're going to have a vegan world. I'm not sure when it'll be, but I do think by 2026 we'll have normalized veganism.
What would a vegan world look like?
I think if an all vegan world would look like a lot more respect for people, a lot more listening to people. I feel like, from witnessing so many people that went vegan for the environment or their health, taking the violence out of their diet, and then their heart softening and suddenly understanding the animals and maybe even connecting to people more. I feel like just by taking the violence out of the diet, we're going to see more peace and more respect, and I think we'll get along better in a vegan world. I think when you eat so much violence and it's all around you, and you're sowing that karma by buying that violent product, I think karmically, I mean, whether or not we're looking at it or not, karma's still coming at us. So there's so much suffering that we're not even aware of, I think, so much, and so much pain and violence we're causing. I mean, even as vegans, you have to be willing to learn and grow more. You know, learn about, because there are a lot of people being exploited when you buy this product. So you just have to be, I think as a vegan, you have to tune in, like palm oil. Palm oil, I think, is not vegan, because I think they're cutting down the forest and killing orangutans, you know. So I think, yeah, I mean, we could go in details about there'll be no slaughterhouses. I mean, that's a beautiful thought. There'll be more trees. There'll be less global warming. There'll be more wildlife coming back. All the things that animal agriculture is destroying will return once we become vegan. The vegan world will look like more lush and green and peaceful.
What food do you eat on a daily basis, like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Like staple foods, routine foods, favorite foods, fun foods?
Every day I'm eating mango. I love mango. I try to. If I have it, I'll eat frozen and dry mango. I love blueberries. I love smoothies, so I'm putting blueberries and pineapple and kale and chia seeds and flax seeds. And if I have it, some hemp powder, a mushroom mix of some good medicinal mushrooms that are good for you, walnuts, and on a regular. And seasonal fruits. I love when grapes are in. Freezing the grapes. Oh my goodness, it's like frozen grapes. It's like candy. Red cabbage every day, just about. Red onion every day, just about. Garlic just about every day. I mean, these are the spices. Turmeric and nutritional yeast for sure. Like in there, almost everything I'm cooking. Sprouted bread, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with this little soy milk or something. Oh, and I like to drink matcha tea with some water and fruit juice. That seems to be, and then water it down through the day. So by the end of the day, I'm pretty much drinking water for the last half of the day. Yeah, those are my staples, I think.
And you occasionally have some fun food too, right?
There's vegan ice cream now. I try not to eat it all the time. I have a few spoonfuls of it as a dessert in the middle of the day sometime. And the processed burgers and all, I like to have those occasionally. I'll get a vegan pizza with vegan cheese. Like I try not to make it my staple, but I love those things. As a treat, they're awesome.
Is it expensive to eat vegan?
It's expensive to eat vegan if all you eat is Beyond Burgers and all. Because some of these, I'm amazed. I go into Walmarts in every town I go into just to see how much organic and vegan food they have, because it's grown so much. In some towns, that's the only grocery store they have. And everyone I go into, the vegan meats and vegan ice creams are just growing, growing, and growing. So I've noticed some of the newer vegan alternatives are really expensive. So if you decide to be vegan and every day you're going to eat, like, instead of a hamburger, you're going to eat a veggie burger. I mean, a Beyond Burgers, vegan meats and all this, and vegan cheeses and vegan ice creams. Yeah, it's going to be expensive. If those are treats, maybe not, is less expensive. But if you're eating staples, if you're eating pastas and rice, that's another thing. I eat rice and pastas and beans every day, just about, burritos. If you're eating like whole foods and produce and vegetables, it's not that expensive. Even organic, you'll be surprised if you cut out the processed foods and you cut out the meat and dairy and eggs and all that expense from that, and you focus on organic vegetables and fruits and nuts and seeds and all that, it can be way more affordable than you would think.
Is it practical for a poor person to embrace a healthy, whole food, plant-based, vegan diet?
Let me tell it this way. When we go to India, and some of the most healthiest people are the poorer people, because they can't afford the meat, dairy, and eggs. They're living on legumes and rice and beans and, I mean, you cut out some of the other stuff I said, the organic stuff. If you're going to be eating meat and dairy opposed to non-organic vegetables, you're way better to just get the non-organic vegetables and eat cheaper. There's lots of websites that's like Eat Vegan for $4 a day. I think there's a website or a video about that. There's books about it. If you Google eating vegan cheap, you're going to find some ideas to where you can eat very affordable and have more variety and more food than you would by spending it on meat, dairy, and eggs. The other thing about the cost of eating vegan as opposed to non-vegan is that there's a lot of healthcare costs that goes in to eating animal products, because there's a lot of sickness that goes around. So when you total it all up, it's a lot cheaper to eat whole foods, plant-based.
You're raising your daughter vegan, right?
Yeah, my daughter Melody has been vegan since birth. Right when she was about 1 year old, she was still nursing with her mom, and her mom and I split up, and I was going to have her half the time. So I started doing a lot of research about kids and vegan and nutrition. And even back in 2012, I found so much that supported a vegan diet for kids, that you avoid a lot of the sicknesses. Like, since she's been born, she has not suffered nearly as much as kids getting sick all the time. She gets sick occasionally. Veganism, I want to be clear, you're going to get sick as a vegan. I still get sick occasionally, but not like I did when I wasn't vegan, man. I had headaches and allergies and things that were regular occurrences that aren't here. Every few years, I had a headache like in the last 10 years once or twice, like where I used to get them all the time. So I have really worked hard to make sure, at least when she's with me, it has good organic vegan food. And when she's with her mom, she's been able to remain vegan because her mom is an ally. Her mom and her other family are not vegan, but her mom is an ally and wants her to eat what she wants to eat. She's not going to tell her she has to eat meat or.
So how do you know she's maintaining this diet when she's not with you?
Well, I mean, I know that she's vegan when she's not with me because she has told me in more than one way. She's told me vocally, of course, but also I witnessed her in a lot of non-vegan environments, times where she didn't know I was witnessing her, you know, and I've seen her constantly. If she finds out something is not vegan, her saying thank you, not thank you, and walking away. And when we go to birthday parties, I always bring her like a vegan cupcake so she doesn't feel left out. But if for some reason they have a party at school, like it's happened just the other day where the people brought some cupcakes, I brought something, she'll ask. She's very like, is this vegan? And they say no. She says, oh, okay, I'm not interested. And she'll walk off and be fine with it. One of my favorite memories of that was when we were in London after we screened A Prayer for Compassion in London. Right before we left, we went to a playground and Melody started playing with this little girl over there a little bit away from me. And the mother walked up to them and she held out a box. And her daughter took like something, a cookie or a cracker. I couldn't see exactly. And I saw there was a pause when she held it to Melody, and I saw Melody ask her something. And then Melody took a cracker, and then the mother walked over to me and said, would you like a cracker? They're vegan. And right away I knew Melody had said, are they vegan? And that opened up this amazing conversation with the mother because comes to find out she had several vegan friends, you know, she wasn't vegan yet. And here I was like going around promoting veganism. I had studied veganism, reasons to be vegan so much that any question or concern she had, I was there. I know her true compassionate nature is vegan. I know she is grossed out when she sees things that as animal products, and I trust her. She's never given me a reason not to trust her. So, yeah, I know that that's in her heart. Like she's very proud to be a vegan from birth.